In this video I want to talk about the new monsters we get in Spelljammer Adventures in Space, and specifically of course the monsters that are in Boo's Astral Menagerie. So this is a standalone book in the Spelljammer Adventure series that features basically a whole bunch of new monsters that would fit in a Spelljammer campaign, and also most of the monsters that you need to run the included Spelljammer adventure. So this will sort of be a quick review. A lot of these monsters I'm seeing for the first time. I'll just be giving my thoughts on them and maybe make some comments about what sort of direction I think this monster design is taking 5e Dungeons & Dragons in, now that we're looking ahead to maybe a 5.5 or 6th edition within the next couple of years. So we're just going to start off with the Artuks, which are intelligent plant creatures that live to wage war. And it's a CR3 creature, the Artuk Elder that is, with decent hit points and AC. Looking down its abilities, Spider Climb, it has some attacks, it can deal radiant damage and bludgeoning damage. It has some spells, these are probably not combat spells, and then it has a bonus action, which is a saving throw, and then it grabbles a creature and pulls it towards it. All in all, not a very interesting creature. There's not a whole lot of sense in spending a lot of time on the Artuk Elder, because it's basically just dealing damage, maybe grabbing and pulling you close. And then we have the Artuk Priest, which has a bit more to do. It still has a branch and a radiant pellet. Then it has psionics, which can cast Revivify, which could be useful in combat. It can use Revivify on another Artuk. And then it has Rally the Troops, a bonus action that can end the Charm of Frightened condition on itself and each creature of its choice that you can see within 30 feet. So basically really good against Charm and Fear effects. And then it has Tongue, which is similar to the Artuk Elders. Once again, this isn't very much different from the Artuk Elder. The only thing we really get that is different is Revivify. And sure, that'll play in. And then we get Rally the Troops. That's very situational. Not a hugely exciting creature once again. Then we have the basic Artuk Warrior here. Attacks, Tongue, same scenario. Doesn't get the spells that the Artuk Elder does, and obviously has less hit points and less AC. But again, these spells are not going to be used in combat, so as combat creatures, the Artuks are not very impressive in my opinion. Moving on to the Astral Elves, which are really cool. Elves that live in space. We get this cool art, that's fun. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time reading about Astral Elves. I'm more interested in their mechanics, where we see that they are challenge rating 8, at least for the Astral Elf Aristocrat, which is obviously more powerful. Elven Chain, not very interesting. It can deal some extra radiant damage with its scimitar. It has a radiant beam, that's just constitution or taking radiant damage, and then it has some spells. Fly, Mislead, and Sending. I think Mislead is a really fun spell. Fly is of course also useful, and Sending is a non-combat thing. Then it has Starlight Step, so it can teleport 3 times per day, and it can also summon a Solar Dragon at a 50% chance. So basically, if you summon that Solar Dragon, this is no longer a CR8 creature, this is at least a CR9 creature, but if you don't summon the Solar Dragon, then obviously it's a lot worse. So I'm always a bit on the fence with these very situational abilities that are very powerful, because it's so much of an either or. The encounter can fall completely flat if this fails, or it can become very, very dangerous if it succeeds. The Astral Elf Commander is a bit less powerful, at least according to the CR. It does have more AC and more hit points. I think the Astral Elf Aristocrat has that Solar Dragon factored in, because this is obviously more beefy. It can, once again, use a longsword that deals radiant damage, longbow that deals radiant damage, and it can cast teleport. For some reason it doesn't get the bonus action Misty Step thing, so that's sort of weird. This is an incredibly boring creature. I'm kind of disappointed in what we're getting here, because it's just damage and teleport. It has nothing really going for it that makes it interesting at all. The Astral Elf Honor Guard, a bit less powerful once more. Once again, it's radiant damage, it has a range attack, it has melee attack, that's it. It doesn't even get the bonus action Misty Step stuff. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I think this is so lackluster. And for this far into 5th edition, I would really love for them to do more with these sort of creatures. Now the Astral Elf Star Priest has a bit more going for it. It can make a dexterity saving throw, Rain of Radiance that deals radiant damage. Again, it's just damage. It has Cure Wounds as an 8 level spell, which is really, that's powerful, and it can do that twice per day, so that's probably what he's gonna do in combat, or she. And then we have Hold Person, which is always a good spell, so I love seeing that on there. Divination and Sending is not gonna matter. Word of Recall can just teleport the elf back to where it was. And then it has that Starlight Step. So this is a bit more interesting, both because it gets that Rain of Radiance and because it can use Cure Wounds and Hold Person. So there are some different tactics you want to use with this creature, and I think that's just a bit more fun. I would have loved to see more of that stuff on the other elves as well. And then we have the Astral Elf Warrior, the least of the bunch, and it's just longsword, longbow, slashing, piercing, radiant damage. Once again, boring creature. Overall, Astral Elves, quite disappointed with what we're doing here. I would have really loved for them to have some more unique and fun features. The most fun stuff we get is that spellcasting and of course the possibility that there will be a solar dragon summoned. Yeah. Next up we have the Autognome, which is also a playable character race, just like the Astral Elf, and it's a chance reading true creature. Whenever it takes damage from a single source, 15 more damage, and isn't reduced to 0 hit points, you can roll d20 and it'll see if some malfunction happens, becomes incapacitated. Its one arm falls off, reducing number of shock attacks you can make, and who turned out the lights, making it blinded and deafened. And it can have a magical day where it explodes and is destroyed and deals damage to creatures around it. Slashing damage is a bit weird. Why not piercing damage? I think that was usually what you'd get from flying debris and stuff, but yeah. And then we have 2 shock attacks. So I like the malfunction feature. I love those kind of features. That's the kind of stuff we always give to our creatures when we make new creatures for our books or the Patreon encounters. So that's a fun feature. I love that it's on there. Beyond that, the Autognome is not very fun. It just had that shock attack and that's it. So yeah, love the weakness. Not hugely excited about everything else. I would love for them, just to stay in that vein, to keep doing this. Do this for almost all of your creatures. It's something that I've made videos on. It's something that we are hugely invested in, just giving creatures weaknesses that the characters can exploit, or that can create these weird, random, fun effects that can expand the tactics that the characters use. The Bracknor is a towering, warm-blooded carnivore. So that's a huge, giant creature. It's basically the creature you get in Star Wars, the 5th, 6th? I should know, I have the tattoo and everything, and I can't even remember the name. Bracknor. And in this version of it, it has Intellect Fortress, where it gets its AC improved by its intelligence modifier, so it could just be natural armor. I don't know if that's gonna matter, that it's specifically intellect it comes from. It has an acid breath, that's just damage. It has some spells. Compulsion is fun, fear is also fun, so those are some nice additions, I think. And if it is hit by an attack roll or magic missile, it can basically cast the shield spell. I think this is better, probably, than a lot of the other monstrosity giant stuff you get in the core rules, because you get that acid breath for some AoE, you get those 2 spells, Compulsion and Fear, that can actually be useful, and you get that psionic shield that is also, of course, going to matter. So this is quite a bit of a tank, because it can, for 3 rounds of combat at least, get an AC of 23, which is of course very significant. Not the worst creature. I love that there is this spellcasting psionics on it, because if that wasn't there, this creature would be a whole lot less interesting for me. Then we have the Brock, which are broad-shouldered, 4-armed giants, so another giant. And it has a multi-attack, so there's a bunch of damage, there's fist and rocks. Then it can use all of its 4 hands to target a single creature and possibly grapple it, and it can't make attacks then, but the target takes 49 bludgeoning damage at the start of each of its turn. And if it manages to kill a creature this way, it rips it into 4 pieces. I like this. I think it's fun. The damage is comparable with the fist stuff it can do in the rock attacks. So basically, if the creature gets its hands on a character member, you want to get that character out of the Brock's embrace, or out of its hideous rend, before that creature's turn starts and it is ripped to pieces. I think that's a fun feature. I would have loved for the Brock to be able to do a bit more, maybe a bonus action or reaction that could be fun and could have an impact as well. But I like the hideous rend features, and I love these kind of features that aren't attacks but maybe works sort of attacks, and it gives the characters a reason to change their tactics and I actually try to break the grapple before they're ripped apart. So I think that's fun. Then we have Twinkers. We've seen those before in what's it called, Tomb of Annihilation, and also Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maidens. So here we have them in their space version. So Twinker astronaut, challenge rating 0 creatures. They have evasion, they have a magical gift, they can give supernatural charm, that's pretty fun. And it also has natural shelter, and it has some spell, druidcraft, guidance, pass without trace, resistance. It's not going to be a creature you're going to fight against, I believe. It doesn't even have an attack, so it's just going to be a little helper. As a companion creature, I could see this being really fun, except that of course getting a supernatural charm every single day is super powerful, so I would maybe restrict that a bit if I gave one to my characters. But it is a really, really fun little creature. I have no issue with this creature at all. It is what it is, a companion creature that can do some fun stuff. Cosmic Horror is something that I think is really interesting because we all, of course, know Cosmic Horror, and this is so. And in this version, it's a colossal malevolent entity that slips from the far realm into the astral plane. So the Cosmic Horror is a gargantuan aberration with a challenge rating of 18, so it's a big baddie, and it has legendary resistance and also legendary actions. Taking a look at its attacks, Bite is just a piercing damage attack, Tentacle is a force damage attack for some reason. That seems a bit weird to me. You can see spikes on these, very physical, so why not bludgeoning and piercing damage perhaps? But it's force damage, and then it grapples the creature. It also has Psychic Whispers, where it will emit a dreadful whisper in a 60-foot radius, and that deals psychic damage. I'm a bit disappointed that doesn't do anything else. Why not stagger creatures or slow them or incapacitate them or paralyze them or charm them or frighten them, anything beyond just dealing psychic damage. As for its legendary action, it had Crushing Tentacle, so it's more force damage, but with a Constitution saving throw because it's used against a grapple creature. That's sort of fun. And it has Foul Gas, which is just poison damage, and it has a teleport action. So at challenge rating 18, I'm sort of disappointed in this because it's damage and it's grappling, sure. It's more damage with Psychic Whispers, AoE, that's fine, but still, why not an effect? And then it has Poison Jet that doesn't even poison, it just deals a bit of poison damage, 14 poison damage at 2 actions. I don't know. Once more, it's just not the most inspired monster design, and especially at challenge rating 18, I would have loved to see it be able to do a bit more very cool stuff. But yeah, that's the Cosmic Horror. Then we have Dowa, which are these penguin-like creatures, small fake creatures. They have merging, where they can telepathically converse with each other, and they can cast Detect Thoughts and deal a bit of piercing damage. Probably not a creature you're going to face too much in combat. Not a hugely interesting creature either, not as a combatant. It's a challenge rating 0 creature, and it's not really going to do very much as a companion creature either. So yeah, not a whole lot to say about that. I don't expect that much from challenge rating 0 creatures, so I guess it's fine. And Aesthete is a biological symbiotic creation of a Riker. We'll see what that is later. And it's essentially an organic ship. So we have a challenge rating 12, gargantuan aberration. It has bioluminescence, so it creates light. It has the properties of a spelljamming helm, so you can fly with it. It has tentacle that grapples and deals acid damage. And it has the Jammer Scream, where it basically disables a spell jamming helm for a certain amount of time. At challenge rating 12, you're going to do 2 tentacle attacks that deals 17 damage each, so that's 34, and then you can perhaps hold on to something to acid damage, but that's all you're going to do beyond being a flying creature. Not a very interesting creature to fight in combat, I'd say. Obviously, it's better that it can grapple and deal extra acid damage, because that does force the characters to change their tactics, but there isn't any AoE or maybe a gravity warp or psychic scream ability, something just a bit more interesting than what we're getting here. So yeah, not hugely impressed with the aesthetic either. Then there is the Eyemonger, which looks like a space beholder, and it's a large aberration, and it has a challenge rating of 10. Anti-magic gullet, are suppressed inside the Eyemonger's gullet, and blah blah blah, 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 blah. So basically you can't use magic inside the Eyemonger, and I assume that's because you're gonna get swallowed. That's true. It has a bite attack, and it can swallow you, and when you're swallowed you take some acid damage, and if it's take damage you get out, so basic normal bite and swallow attack. The issue I have with this creature at challenge rating 10 is that it has a single bite attack that deals 12 damage, and then you have a DC 18 dexterity saving throw. If a creature succeeds on that saving throw, you dealt 12 damage. So first you have to hit the creature, then you have to make it fail a dexterity saving throw, and then it can start to take a lot of damage, acid damage at the start of each turn. This creature is, in my opinion, not a challenge rating 10 creature. With 17 AC and 150 hit points, it's gonna go down in 1 or 2 turns against a party of just anything above 7 or 8, basically. So I don't see this being very effective. I see it being quite easy to kill or destroy, and it only has a fly feet of 20 feet. So if the characters are flying themselves, they can just stay out of range of this 5 feet reach. Yeah, not, in my opinion, a very impressively designed creatures, and I think it's a bit too weak for a challenge rating. And moving on, we have the Fear, which is another aberration style beholder-like creature. It's challenge rating 5, unusual nature, sure. It has frightful bite, so it bites a creature and it becomes frightened. I love seeing that. That is fun because it bites a creature and then each creature within 10 feet of the Fear, so it's an AoE frightened effect as well. Really fun. It has tentacle that deals psychic damage and grapples a creature. It has invisibility, where it becomes invisible until it attacks, and it has nightmare fuel, where it forces a DC 13 wisdom saving throw and deals psychic damage, and it gains temporary hit points equal to the damage dealt. So this is fun. This is much more what I would want to see in 5e monster design going forward. I think it's powerful for a challenge rating with 88 hit points and 16 armor at challenge rating 5. It has a fun main attack, it has a fun secondary attack, and it has a really fun single use effect where it also regains hit points. Much better design in my opinion. I'm happy to see the Fear here, especially after seeing stuff like the Eyemonger, which really isn't that impressive in my opinion. Moving on, we have the Geish, which is a hideous hunter that preys on other intelligent life forms. So there's sort of these insectile aberrations. Challenge rating 4. Mandibles deals slashing damage and grapples, and it deals slashing damage to the target while it is grappled. It has a mind-probing antennae, where it targets a creature as grappled, forces it to make a wisdom saving throw, deals psychic damage, and it can pull a piece of information. That's pretty fun. And then it has Paralyzed that recharges on 6, where it forces one creature to basically save against Toad Person. I think this is fun for challenge rating 4. I think it's reasonable to say that you're gonna not get much more than this. Still, I love having bonus actions on there to make bonus actions matter on monsters, so I would have wanted to maybe see that. But as far as a standard challenge rating 4 creature goes, this is one of the more fun ones that is gonna sort of force the characters to change their tactics and can impact the battlefield by paralyzing and grappling creatures. So, decent creature, I like that. Then we have Giff, a Giff shipmate. Advantage against being prone, blah blah. Challenge rating 3, firearms knowledge, sure. It has a longsword, it has a musket, so that's just damage, and then it has force grenade that also just deals damage. That's it. And we have a Giff shock trooper. It can charge. That's always a bit fun. And then we have a great sword attack. We have a musket attack again, and we have a thunder bomb that again just deals damage. So the only thing it's going to do is knock you prone, possibly when it charges against you, and beyond that it's just a damning dealing creature. I like that we do get an AoE on what would normally be just one single target monster, so getting that AoE damage is fun, but I would have loved to see it do more, maybe knock creatures prone or back or something with that thunder damage. A Giff Warlord has legendary resistance, a more powerful musket and Morningstar, and then it has legendary actions where it can move without provoking opportunity attacks. It can end the fighting condition on itself and its allies, and it can make 2 Morningstar attacks on double-barreled musket attack. Again, damage. It's just going to deal a lot of damage. Rallying Cry and move makes it more fun and adaptive in combat, but it's not making it that much more interesting in the sense that it's still just going to deal damage and take damage. That's all it does. Githyanki we know, and we get some additional types of Githyanki here. First we have a Greatsword attack, Telekinetic Bolt, we have Psionics, which has Plane Shift and Telekinesis. Telekinesis is going to maybe have an impact in combat. It's not the greatest spell, I think. And then we have a Misty Step effect, basically. Not a very interesting creature, in my opinion. Not much to it. It's challenge rating 3, but I still would have loved to see it just do a bit more. Githyanki Starseer, same thing, Astral Bolt. It has some psionics, and it still only gets as sort of viable spells, Invisibility, Mage Armor, and Telekinesis. So again, not a terribly fun creature to play against. It is probably suitable for challenge rating with quite a lot of hit points, and also the ability to make 3 Astral Bolts that deal 20 damage each, which also makes it so that you'll probably never use Telekinesis, because it's not going to be nearly as effective as just Astral Bolting people down. Then we have the Githyanki Xenomancer, and it's more of the same. There's a Staff Attack, deals damage, Telekinetic Bolt. This one gets some more interesting spells. Dominate Monster is a fan favorite. It has Force Cage, which is really evil. It has Telekinesis again, and it has also Invisibility. So I see this creature being able to do a lot more in combat, which I think is fun. It also gets a parry reaction, which of course is also fun. So this is much more like the design that I would want to see for monsters in 5e, because yeah, it can do more. It has different tactics to use in different situations, and that's something that I appreciate. Head OCs are these monkey-like creatures that are also a playable character race. And there's not a whole lot to say about the Head OC. It's basically just attacks and nimble escape. It's like a goblin. It has safe descent, so if it falls, it can stop falling, but it is a glorified goblin creature, basically, at challenge rating 2. Head OC Shipmate, even worse, challenge rating 1-8. This is just a very unimpressive creature. It's just above a commoner in effectiveness, and of course it doesn't take damage when it falls, but once again, not probably gonna matter that much. The Head OC Warrior is Uncanny Dodge. That's interesting, that's useful at least, and then it has more attacks. So these are again just vanilla filler humanoid monsters you can use, and we have so many vanilla humanoid monsters, so I really want them to give these monkeys a bit more to do. Yeah. Jammer Leech. So this is a creature that is a barnacle-like creature that dwells on the hulls of spelljamming ships. It's a tiny plant, generate 1. It can overload a spelljammer, not a combat thing necessarily, but something it will do out of combat. It can deal some spike damage with piercing damage with its tentacle, and it can attach to a hull, and it has a magical discharge where it gives force damage and stuns, and I think that's fun, that it can sort of use this reaction against a creature that deals damage to it, or just whenever it takes damage it can do this. So fun reaction, quite powerful as well, and a boring attack, and then it has some features that are more to do with out of combat stuff, and I think that's fine. Overall, the Jammer Leech at CR1 is one of the better designed creatures in my opinion. This is a fun enough creature. Kandari, largest creatures found in wild space, giant space whales. Gargantuan Celestial at challenge rating 7. It has a tail attack, and it has blinding eyes that can blind your eyes. A single creature, no, each creature in a cone, so it's an AoE blind effect. I probably don't have to tell you that this is not a very interesting stat block either. The bonus action is cool, but it's only going to be used probably once in a combat, and beyond that it's a giant bag of hit points that deals probably not that significant amount of damage, especially if you compare it to stuff like the Giant Shark, which I believe does the same amount or even more damage at a lower challenge rating. So this is just a big bag of blubbery hit points flying around. Now we get to the exciting stuff, Lunar Dragon. I love dragons, and a Moon Dragon or Moon Inspired Dragon, that's really fun. We're going to take a look at the Ancient Lunar Dragon first. So this is challenge rating 19. Legendary Resistance, sure. Tunneler, it has flying speed, all that good stuff, of course, and then it has a bite that can deal cold damage, claw and tail attacks that doesn't do anything, cold breath that deals cold damage and reduces your speed. I love that. That's something that I would have loved to see on the standard white dragon as well, so that's a really cool thing. It also has phase, where it becomes partly incorporeal and gets resistance. Fun bonus action. I would have loved to give it another bonus action that sort of competes with this, so it would be, do I use phase or do I do this other thing, maybe a tail attack just or something, but it's a good bonus action. I love that there is a bonus action on there. Then it can make a tail attack as a legendary action. It has Treacherous Ice, where it creates ice in an area. It has a wing attack. Standard, we know these wing attacks knocks them prone, and then it can move the speed. I think it's a fine dragon. For an ancient dragon, it doesn't do a whole lot, especially when you compare it to Fistbands, where we get dragons that have spells, psionic spells and stuff like that. I would have loved to see this get a bunch of spells as well. Moonbeam is an obvious one. There is a few others that would really make sense for an ancient lunar dragon to have. and that would give it a bit more versatility in combat, because we're still sort of locked into the traditional dragon pattern of either using your breath if it's up, or just going all in on attacks, and that's about it. I like the Treacherous Eyes legendary action, but not the most impressive or inspiring dragon design. And there are of course other versions of the dragon. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on those, because they are probably not as fun either. So yeah, that's the first half of this video on the monsters in Spelljammer Adventures in Space. I will be coming out with the second half of the monsters shortly, but this video was already getting really long, so I decided to cut it here. If you like what we do here, please comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and you can also check out patreon.com/Eventyr if you want to support the channel, what we do here, and get access to a whole bunch of fun 5e encounters. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot left to say, except thank you so much for watching, and I hope that I'll see you in the next video.